Namaskaram. Welcome to my channel Living Consciously. So today we are having a new podcast with Kritika Soni. She is also from the same batch, 2019. We completed Hatha Yoga teacher training together in Isha Yoga Center, Coimbatore. So welcome Kritika. A very heartily welcome to you.
Thank you,
Uh,
Akka.
and, and this is a very special episode because she was like, her room was just beside my room. So my room was there, and then there was a room beside me, and where Kritika was there with some other. So we used to we got to know each other from that also very well because we were were adjacent rooms to each other, and she always called me Dee, and we had like little connection. We talked a lot also, but as the training is so intense, we did not got that much time to spend together to chat. So this would be a great opportunity to know her journey and to understand her struggles, and the way what she's doing right now is amazing. So let's start with that. So welcome Kritika.
Thank you, Akka. Thank you so much.
So why don't you start with introducing yourself, what you do, and your family, and where do you live right now? Like just little bit of yourself.
Okay. So, namaskaram everyone. My name is Kritika, as Pailaka have already told you. So, currently I'm living in Toronto, okay, that is Canada, but basically I'm from Panipat, that's a small city in Haryana. And I was born and brought up there. Then my education, like the higher education, happened in Kurukshetra, and I worked in Kurukshetra. And I did my, master's in mass communication. So that was the area in which I studied. But I did multiple jobs. Like, my career was not only limited to mass communication, but now I'm full time into yoga teaching. I think, yeah, after learning and tasting the teaching, I cannot do anything else but yoga. So, yeah.
Why don't you talk about your mother, father, your if you have a sibling? You are married, I know that. So you
Yeah.
can talk about.
So yeah, I about my parents. My mother, she was a teacher. She owned a school actually, and she was teaching there, and taking care of the coordination, like the basically she was a principal, and now she's not working anymore. And my father is a businessman, so he own his business of electronic gadgets. And my brother, he's also into family business. And yeah, I have one sibling. He's 4 years younger than me. And now I'm married. So my husband is into IT. He's an IT guy, and same intelligent species like you, Akka. So the geeky intelligent, yeah. So he's a software engineer.
Okay. So how is your relationship with your brother? Siblings, rivals, or like how is it?
So, when we were young, like, yeah, it was like typical brothers and sisters. We were fighting, a lot. But now it's very beautiful, like we never realized how beautiful the relationship is till the time, we were parted from each other. But it's a very beautiful relationship. We don't talk very often. Like, it's not I compulsorily call him every day, but it's very good. Like, I trust him. I tell him everything. I say he's my biggest critique. No matter what, he'll tell me the truth. So yeah, he's somebody I really rely upon for taking guidance, and he'll never be like, okay, this person did this to you. He'll be like, okay, here you are at fault. So I really appreciate that part about him. It's a good relationship.
So how was your child? How was your childhood? What do you say?
So, Akka, it was mixed. Initially, I was very pampered, bubbly, and the person like who, talks a lot, like the kids who talks a lot, conversation starter. But then after the age of 5 or 6, I became very introvert. One major reason was, which was really a struggle for me throughout my life, not now anymore, that coming from North India, I think they're a little racist that way. So everyone in my family is very fair compared to me, especially the girls. So, people used to say to my mother, okay, why don't you give her something like saffron milk, apply something, put some, they'll just tell every kind of home remedy. And when you are a child, you understand everything. People think they'll just say anything and you won't get it, but even a 2-year-old get everything. I believe that, at some level they understand. So in a way that made me feel inferior in my own way. I also, shared a detailed post about it I think an year back. And yeah, so it was my struggle. Maybe for while listening it would be like nothing, but for me it was a big struggle because I used to hear that a lot.
So, so did your parents know that you were going through it, or it was your just an own thing which you were doing it
No,
on your?
I never shared it with anyone. I didn't have the courage because see, when you are a child and like 99 people are saying one thing, so you believe that that is right. I never knew the other way or the better way. I thought, okay, they are saying it means I have a problem, like I have a deformity. This is a deformity. So I grew up that way, trying to see how I can overcome that. Maybe I didn't even know it is impossible to change the complexion, and even if you are able to, it's a really useless thing to ponder upon. But when everyone is talking about that, so I thought like it's the reality. I never thought there is a other way, and I never shared it with anyone, for all these years. I think now I talk about it because I don't want anyone else to go through the same, and to let the people know it's really not important. Come on, grow up now. So yeah.
Then after graduation, you pursued engineering, I guess. You did.
No, okay, I did mass communication.
Okay. So, how did that happen to you? How did you choose that career path?
Yeah, so my graduation was in computer science, and I did that mainly because my father wanted me to do that. I was never interested in computer or anything logical, anything numerical won't make much sense to me. I was always interested in art, aesthetics, communication, something, which is subjective, which is not objective in nature. So yeah, after a lot of struggle, like I was not able to convince my father, and then I was like, okay, I cannot do something just to please my parents. Though I know we owe them a lot, like they do everything for us, but still at the end of the day, it's our life, and we cannot do something in a career just to please someone. So I chose to do masters in mass communication, and I applied at a few places, and did very well in the entrance examination. So I thought, okay, this is the path, let's go for it. And that's how I chose mass communication. And also from very childhood, I was very interested in communicating things, like both verbally and non-verbally in written form. So I thought, yeah, this is the path I want to choose.
So, how was your college life? How was it overall for you?
So, about the graduation, I did it in computer science, but I was hardly attending my classes. Like I passed my exams, I did well, academically, but most of the time my energy was on, participating in something like declamations, debate competitions, mimes, or theaters. I did like a couple of times. So, and I was doing very well. Like I was able to, go to many national levels also. I represented my university, so that gave me more clarity. Okay, this is what I want. And then obviously when I did my masters, again, because it was my area of interest, so I finished it very successfully, with a gold medal. Though it doesn't matter at all, but yeah, so I really think if you choose what interests you, you really excel in it. And I'm very happy that I made that choice against the will of my father. So
I remember you were saying sometime that you did a radio job when you were doing the masters. So how was that for you?
yeah, so again, there is a radio, like government radio, All India Radio. You must be knowing about it. It's almost like a audio version of Doordarshan. You know how we have Doordarshan. Similarly, we have All India Radio, which is controlled and regulated by government. It's not directly controlled by government, but it comes under a government body. So they have this, every 2-3 years they post some vacancies for the local talent, like, to just give them a chance to interact with people. So that was not a permanent job. It was more like a part-time job. So they pay you as per every show. So when I was doing my masters in the very first year, I came to know about this, and then I applied it, though I knew I won't get selected, just to try. And so luckily I got selected in that. Then they you have to take a proper training. This is a voice and accent training that happens through Doordarshan. And after that, yeah, you slowly start taking shows and you come on air. And I was hosting a program named Yuvavani. It was all about catering to the needs of youth. Like, we used to conduct several interviews and talks by specialists in different areas. And there we used to tell about the employment opportunities, the new, courses that are coming. So all majorly about youth. That program was majorly about youth.
So after completing your graduation, you did job or something after that? What you did after
After the graduation.
Yeah.
So yes, Akka. So when I was doing my graduation, I got selected in 2-3 companies, and one of the company was Wipro, and I was very keen to go in the company more than the profile and job. The egoistic reason was I was the only one in my college who got placed in that company, and I was like, okay, if they are so picky, it means they have a good job. So without thinking much, without analyzing much, even against the will of my so many teachers, I thought, okay, let me try this. But then when I started the job, I thought, like, this is not something which is making me happy. I don't know. I didn't like the corporate culture that much. And more than that, I was thinking, okay, I want to pursue my education. I cannot be just a graduate. So yeah, that's how. So I dropped the plan of job. I did it for 4 months only. Then I came back, and just in order to don't have a gap in my education, I took a program of 1 year in B.Ed, that is Bachelor's of Education. So it was not a plan. It was just to fill that gap in. So I did that. Like, I always made my own mistakes and learned out of it, and I'm very happy about it. Actually, it's not I repent or something. So yeah.
So what you did after that?
So okay, yeah, after finishing my B.Ed, I applied for masters, and then I did my masters in communication. It was from Kurukshetra University. So Kurukshetra is almost 80 km from my place. And I did that as a regular program, and I was staying in hostel. So yeah, there I got to enjoy the hostel life. And then I also started working side by side with All India Radio. So it was a very happening, it was a very happening life. Like, you're doing what you always wanted, your dream job. Not like in terms of money, it was a dream job, but yeah, in terms of work, it was something I always dreamt of. So yeah, it was very happy 2 years.
Then after graduation, I think you teached somewhere or you were teaching somewhere. You have taken the job of teaching.
Yes, Saka. So, like after finishing my post graduation, like my both parents were very particular about this thing. You do like mass communication. We won't say no. Like especially my mother, my father was saying no, but then they were very particular that you are not going to work on television or something like that. The typical media jobs full of struggle, no, night full of night shifts initially at least. So they were like, okay, do whatever you want, but then for the when it will come to job, listen to us. You can't do this. You just have 1 to 2 years. Either way will get you married. So after marriage, it is going to be a equation between you and your husband. Do whatever you want, but right now, no, like media jobs. So I got an opportunity to teach in my own college from where I did the graduation in my hometown. It's a college named RFPG College. It's a very renowned college in Panipat in our city, the best college in fact of our city. So I got a job as a temporary assistant professor, like on a dog basis, and I started working there. But then this strange thing happened. One day when I just started, I got a call from a friend with whom I used to work in Wipro, where I joined as my first job after graduation. And he was like, okay, what are you doing these days? I told him, then I finished my B.Ed and then master's and then this and that, and now I'm working as an assistant professor. And he casually asked me, okay, how much you can earn? And it was a ad hoc job, and I was hardly making, I think, 10 or 11,000 bucks. And I told him, and he was like, okay, what was the use then? You spent 4 more years approximately, and you're just earning this much. If you would have continued that job like me, you must be making around 60,000 or more than that by now. And just that one thought struck me somewhere, and I was like, oh my god, my life failed. It was not about money. I was never a materialistic person that way. But then I always wanted to do something distinguished in life, the life ended up in such a regular job, assistant professor. So that one thought made my whole life upside down, and I couldn't pursue my job. Like I was really into a state of depression, sort of thing. So yeah, and I had to leave my job as an assistant professor after, I would say, 4 months.
So what you did after you came home, and what did you do after that? That.
Yeah, because I was in home only, like it, as I told you, the college was in my hometown only. But because of the whole thing, I shared it with my mother, and my mother, my teachers, everyone was like, don't worry, you're doing good, I knew, like, the problem was only in my mind. It was just a silly thought. The situation was perfectly all right, but then I couldn't help it. So my family supported me like anything. My mother, father, and my brother, they were always with me, no matter what crappy things I was saying. But then I chose to leave the job, and I was doing nothing for 1 year, almost 1 year. I did nothing. I was just, daydreaming in my own imagination. I did nothing. Um,
How did you overcome that then? How did you come out of it?
Yeah, so Akka, then after a few months of rest, I think which I never took in my life, I started thinking, okay, this is not going to make any sense. At least I have to come out of this. In this state, nothing is going to happen. And then I talked to a few, people I know, or I look them very high, and I know they're very extremely positive people. So one of my jijaji and a few of my teachers, like and and there's one person, one teacher known as, his name is Dr. Sohan Chandel. He's a psychologist. So I talked to him. Okay, this is the problem. I shared everything, and then he told me a few things or remedies. I started doing it, and slowly I came out of that phase. It was not like no magic happened in one day, because the problem didn't happen in one day. So but slowly I managed to come out of it, you know. And the only thing I did is, I didn't take any kind of medicines or therapies. No, I came in contact with nature, you know, about which Sadhguru always talks. Just come in contact with nature. So I think that's how I was able to manage my dark phase.
So you have a arranged marriage or a love marriage? So how did that happen?
What do you think?
It should be a love marriage.
No, it's an arranged marriage, Akka. It's a pure arranged marriage, I would say.
So,
Love happened after the first meeting, though. That's a different thing. But yeah. So one of my teacher, you know, she called me when I was so okay. So just to tell you that after when that, you know, phase finished, the depression one, I got this job in Kurukshetra, the same place where I you know, did my masters from. There's a very renowned school, boarding school, Geeta Niketan Avasi Vidyalaya. So I got a job of a PGT teacher, mass media, and I was working there. And then I was back to my form, you know, always full of activity. I was doing teaching and very passionately doing it, you know. I was taking care of 10 different things because I was single. I have all the time for my job. So obviously the school was very happy because, you know, everybody needs a teacher who is willing to spend time till 6 or 7 p.m. So it was very nice that way. And I was like, okay, this is my life. Now I want to do this, you know. I was learning Kathak. I started learning Kathak. I was doing gymming. So for the first time in my life, I was so happy. And I was lucky that when I was in Kurukshetra, I got a room in at such a beautiful place. So the family, they became like my own family, and I'm still in contact with them. So life was perfect, and there was no reason for me to get married, you know, because in between there was a gap of 1.5 years. Now the life was fully on. But then you know, nature has its own plan. So one day I was at home, like I used to go to my home for weekend, and one of my teacher called me. Like she was my teacher when I was in school, and we were still in touch. And she was like, you know, I have a proposal for you. Like, one of my cousin, he's a very good boy, and I think you two will be very you know, suitable for each other for a match. And then I was like, because she was my teacher, you know, and I you know how you have so much respect for your teachers, you cannot bluntly say no. Though I wanted to, so I was like, okay, let my mother handle this, and I will gradually say no if the need will arise. And I don't know what happened. My mother was so positive about it. She fixed everything in 10 minutes. Like, after 10 minutes of the call, we were seeing each other. It was almost like that. I think there were one, two little things in between. But yeah, I think we made this call on one Saturday. Next Saturday, we were meeting each other. And then in my mind, I was very clear. I'm going to, you know, see the boy. I'll ask him so many questions. I'll annoy him, and he'll be saying no. You know, I won't even need to say no. So we met, and Akka, I don't know what happened there. I just couldn't speak, you know. I got so blank. It was not I was very happy or sad, no, no feeling, but I was so blank. When we both, like me and August, when we met with our families, but you know how you get 20 minutes to decide whether you want to marry this person or not. So he asked me, you know, okay, tell me about yourself, and I couldn't speak. Like, it was the worst introduction I had ever given in my life. I just could not speak. And and yeah, I end up asking him nothing. I didn't even ask him like, what do you do for a living, or some very basic questions. He told me a few things on his own, and yeah, that just this was our first meeting. But I think it was more of a energy based meeting, because we didn't share much in terms of words or anything. And I went home, and I ended up saying yes for that for that. Now the obviously the ball is was on my husband's court. So later on I came to know my husband had the same situation. He didn't want to marry, and his parents even lied to him, okay, come to meet us, because my husband was at that time working in a different city. So they asked him, okay, come to see us, like you come on some of the weekends. And then they were like, okay, tomorrow we are going to see a girl for you. And he was like, what is this? He lied to me. So somehow his mother convinced him to, okay, at least see the girl and then say no. So we both met to say no to each other, but we ended up saying yes. I don't know why. I still don't know why. So
Amazing, amazing love story.
yeah, I don't know. I still try to figure out how did I say yes, you know?
Then after marriage, you quit your job because he was at different place, you were at different place.
Yeah, Akash, so I was in Kurukshetra. He was working in Gurgaon. It's like, 6 hours drive from one place to other. So I had to like leave my job. And I was very happy, because a new episode was coming, and I was surprisingly very excited about it. I never thought in my life that I would be this. I never wanted to marry, and question of being happy about marriage was nowhere. But I was very happy about this new, chapter. And I quit my job 2 months before my marriage, because I wanted to travel to a few places alone. And yeah, then eventually I moved to Gurgaon after marriage with my husband and his family.
Where did you travel in between? That's a very
Oh,
interesting thing.
so Aka, that I basically, parents are a little conservative in India, and it's also not very safe to travel, especially in North. So I didn't get a chance to travel much, but I went to Rishikesh. That's a place I really love, Ganga, and you just sit on the bank of the Ganga, and it's very amazing. And actually, I went there for a yoga course. It was a 5 days yoga course from with the Art of Living. And I even lied to my parents. I was like, Ojasvi is asking me to go there. He want me to do this course. So there was an agreement between both of us, and that's how I managed to travel. And I also went to Amritsar. So uh, one of my cousin is there, so I went there, and I basically wanted to travel, but then I have this stupid reason to give to my mom that there you have a very good collection of artificial jewelry. I want to get my jewelry from there. So it was just about traveling. So I managed to travel to these two places. Yeah.
So how was your married life then after that?
Married life, okay, now it's very good. But at that point it was mostly mixed. I won't say that it was easy, but what one thing I can say for sure is that yeah, I grew a lot out of it. So the major struggle for me was that my husband was very spiritually inclined. He's a follower of, I think that he's a follower of Art of Living, Sri Ravi Shankar ji, and he was doing his practices intensely, like from even 7 8 years before, from our marriage. So obviously he would pursue that, and I was also spiritual in my own ways, but not in terms of sadhana. I didn't have any sadhana. I used to read books, try few things here, few things there, but I was never very particular. So that was our biggest struggle, Aka, because in my imagination I thought like if I'm marrying, I'm ready to leave everything, my career, my this, my that. And I'm just here for you. So, but for my husband, not much changes happened. So he was still working. He was learning music, classical music at that time. He continued his music and sadhana. Obviously, now I'm on the path. I know you cannot leave it. There is no question about leaving it. So somehow, and also he was an introvert person. He still is introvert, but that time he was a lot more introvert. So yeah, it uh, so there were a few struggles, that way, because I was basically on my own.
Mhm.
So, and when I'll ask him, okay, you have just got married, I want to spend time with you, he was like, I have my work to do. You were working so much, before marriage. Where is your work? Like, not in terms of job, but other things you were doing, just do that. So I think males and females think and act very differently. So that was a thing. But yeah, I learned, a lot out of it. I think I grew a lot as a person from that. But it was struggling. Initially, it was struggling because you don't expect your husband to do 2 hours of sadhana on honeymoon. so, so like that, it was a struggle initially.
So when did you move to Canada then?
We got married in 2017, and then 2018 June we moved to Canada. Uh, Majorly because of the pollution in Gurgaon. That was the reason we moved to Canada. So for both of us, really, it was unbearable to manage the pollution of Gurgaon, especially for me. If you have heard how the situation of Delhi and NCR is after Diwali, they have there is a crazy pollution, so my health level was going really down, and then we decided to move to Canada. And the good thing is it was very easy for us to take this decision because my husband was already working for a Canadian company. In India, he was working like a consultant, and he was the only person working remotely for his company. And when he told his boss that, okay, do you think it would be a good idea? They very happily welcomed us, and they got me a work permit as well, so that I don't, stay idle there. And that's how we came to Canada. Mhm.
So how was that for you, the change and this?
Uh, so I was very positive about the change, because in India a lot was happening in terms of, health was very down, and I think initial 1 or 2 years in a marriage, especially in an arranged set of marriages, struggle, because there's a lot of change for you. Your life changed, almost 180 degrees. So and I was never a kind of person, Aka, who was in family. Like for last 4 years from my marriage, I was always out, so I didn't know much about chores of the house, or how you can be at home, because I was always doing one thing or the other. So how Sadhguru says people don't know how to sit at a place. So then I came to know for the first time, I cannot just sit at a place. And then understanding so many new people, a new family culture, though we both were from same caste, but still, every house is different. So it was overall it was a lot. And then I was very positive about coming to Canada. But then another thing happened, that when we were, coming, like when you move to a different country, there are so many immigration formalities in at the airport. So the immigration officer did something wrong. And when I came to Canada, there is a number known as SIN number. It is equivalent to India's Aadhaar card. If you want a job or you want to do anything, you need that number, and generally you get that number on the airport or very next day. And this immigration officer did something wrong, and I couldn't have that number for 3 months. So basically I was not able to open an account, look, even search for a job, or did like 90% of the things. So I could just stay at home. It was very struggling, it was very challenging, because my husband started working from the very next day, and I was whole day I was alone. And the time zones are so different that you cannot even call anyone, at home for the longest duration of your day. So for first 2 3 months, yeah, very very struggling. And but the good thing is then Sadhguru happened, then I started listening to Sadhguru's videos, majorly because I wanted to restart my career in communication. And Sadhguru, like, his communication skills are
Amazing.
just amazing. The way he speaks, the way he put put a thought, and the para language, like, in communication there is a term known as para language, like you speak with your silence half of the time, when you take correct pauses, the pitch. So so I started listening to Sadhguru for that reason. I came across one of his video and I was like, oh my god, he speaks so well. I have to listen to him. I have to learn, how he speaks so well. And that's how the journey started here in Canada.
I remember you were saying that you gained a lot of weight, and you faced some
Yeah,
medical issues like PCOD, and that after you got married. So, if you want
yeah,
to tell about
actually,
that struggles.
yeah, and that happened when I was in India only, like, after 4 5 6 months. I think it was majorly the pollution, because Kurukshetra is a much cleaner place than Gurgaon, though it's not like very very far, but Gurgaon, it's the IT hub now. There's crazy pollution. Then emotionally, the first year of marriage was challenging, understanding so many people and doing things out of your comfort zone. Like, though I was blessed with very amazing I am blessed with very amazing parents in law and family, and my husband, I generally say I have never seen such a pure soul than my husband. But still, understanding and coming on the same page takes time. So there was a lot going on, and it all mixed up and ended up in some medical issues. So I gained like a good 10 11 kgs in one after 1 year. And then I came to know that, okay, I have this problem of PCOD, which is a very common problem these days, but it can really be serious, for your health. So yeah, so the doctor told me, like, if you lose weight, if you change your lifestyle, um, it will be fine. So yeah, but gradually I was able to overcome it through yoga. um, yeah.
So then, Sadhguru's video you started seeing, and then you choose that path. Uh, like, so what was the first course that you did?
Yeah, so okay, I was just watching the videos, and then my SIN number issue got resolved. I got my SIN number, I got a good job, and then I started working. And one day I was just, coming back from office. So I used to surf a lot of internet when on my way back to from office to home, and I came across this brochure some volunteer had shared about Bhuta Shuddhi. And Bhuta Shuddhi was very, I don't know, it was very interesting for me. The concept of Bhuta Shuddhi was very interesting for me. So I called this person right away, and I said, like, I came across this advertisement. So he was like, it was not an advertisement, Akka, it was just my effort, to share something. Please don't say it an advertisement. And he got so emotional about it. I was like, okay, it's very 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 sorry about this. So can you tell me? So he told me all the details about the program. And it was he's a very active volunteer here in Toronto. Raji, very, very amazing person. So the program was happening at his home only, and I enrolled for the program, and I think it was happening on the same weekend. I did that, and I felt very positive about it. The program, I really loved it, like, the whole process of Bhuta Shuddhi. And then in the end, I talked to the teacher. Okay, I recently got diagnosed with PCOD, and sometime I feel emotionally very down. Can you tell me something, some remedy. So he said, okay, good that you have learned Bhut Shuddhi. You also learn some Hatha Yoga practice, which is more physical in nature. Physical in terms of like you're using your body. You know, in Bhuta Shuddhi, basically it's like a ritual. You are sitting and doing it, but you learn a more elaborate physical Hatha Yoga practice. So I was like, okay, tell me what would be the best thing to learn. So he was like, it's good that you start with the Surya Kriya. And then, you know, the issue was we didn't have a car, you know, and it's not very easy to travel in Canada. Like for 10 kilometers, sometimes you end up changing 3 buses. So he was like, uh, if you want, I can come to your place and teach. So I was like, yeah, that would be amazing. That way I have no problem. So I on the very next day, I took up like Surya Kriya. Like on, suppose on Sunday, I finished Bhuta Shuddhi. Monday and Tuesday, I learned Surya Kriya. It was very, very fast. So,
How was the experience for you, the Surya Kriya?
okay, more than I could, like, you know, experience Surya Kriya. The first thing, the program happened at my place, and the teacher came and he was like, okay, give me 15 20 minutes, I have to prepare this area. I was like, okay. And he did the preparation, and it was so beautiful, you know. The I could not experience it, like, even intellectually it was so beautiful that you know, the arrangement, the alignment, he created a whole different space in my house. It was very amazing. And then when the program started, the kind of details, you know, the detailed mistakes he tell, it was very amazing for me. Like, I'm a person who love details, and the detail oriented approach Isha has, it just stole my heart. I was like, wow. Before finishing the first class, I just had this strong desire. I want to teach something like this, you know. It would be so amazing if I can have an opportunity to teach this. And I think the idea of becoming a teacher was you know, the very idea came even after the first class of Surya Kriya. And it was beautiful. The practice was beautiful. I could see, you know, how if a teacher is properly telling you, like, your posture changes just like that, you know. My first cycle, like first time when I did Surya Kriya, and the last cycle, on the very first day, I could feel a lot of change. You know, it was very, very magical. And then the next day of Surya Kriya came, and my teacher Omkar Bhaiya, so somebody has to come to pick him up, but he was late. So Bhaiya was like, can I stay at your place for 1 hour? I was like, wow. It's like a dream come true moment. Yeah, please stay here. And I asked him so many things about the teacher training, how was the course. And my husband also, you know, because he knew about Isha, though he's into art of living, but he's a very you know, active listener of Sadhguru, and he was knowing pretty much everything. So we both like interviewed him for good 1 hour about his experience as a teacher. And then I told my husband, like, you know, after Bhaiya left, that I really want to do this. I don't know, like, I know I'm not capable of, but I really want to do this. So then after the first Surya Kriya class, the idea started.
So when did you did inner engineering then?
Okay, I did like my Surya Kriya in October 2018. Yeah, and I think it was January 2019 or December 2018. I did my inner engineering, and I did my inner engineering because it was a prerequisite for, you know,
Teacher
teacher training.
training.
I didn't know about inner engineering till that point, but because I had to apply for teacher training, so I registered like myself for inner engineering, and that's how I did inner engineering.
How was your experience of inner engineering?
Okay, inner engineering was very, very beautiful. Like in in terms of, when I did the program, it was very nice, happy event. But with any of the practice, for me, the experience builds slowly. It's not like nothing will happen on day one to me, or maybe I cannot experience it. I feel very happy, very positive about programs, but it's not like any transformation has happened or something like that. But I was again, the Isha, as an organization made more sense to me. The way the inner engineering teacher was, and the intensity with which volunteers were working, that really blew my mind away. And then they told about mandala thing at the end, how we have to do Shambhavi for 40 days. And I was like, I'm not going to do it, because I know, as a person, I really lacked self discipline. And at that time when I did inner engineering, I was doing a full time job. I was traveling 3 hours for that job. So basically, 12 hours I was not at my home. And you need empty stomach condition on top of everything for Shambhavi. So I was like, it's not going to happen for me. I know that. But I was like, okay, let's try, because I experimented with so many things in my life. For 2 3 days, I'll so intensely do it, and after 3 days, it will be gone. It happened with so many things in my life, and I think it happens with so many other people also. So so I came back, and I told my husband. So he was like, if you are going for teacher training, if you are choosing to take such a big commitment, you have to make this work. Only then there is some sense, in doing teacher training. This is like the minimum you have to do. And then I thought, like, okay, but still I knew it's not going to happen for me. But I don't know, like, I don't know what happened. It was so magical that I was able to finish my mandala without even a single break, continuously for 40 days. And in between, I was working, like, there was no day I was taking an off or something. I was also doing a small, certification course. There was a lot of work, so much was going on, but I was able to finish my mandala, you know and for the first time it happened. I still feel like it was not me who did that. It was some grace or some form of energy that I didn't do it. Like, it happened on its own. And it was very beautiful. I still don't believe it. I could do that at that point,
So then you decided, and there is a selection process, and you got selected for the training, and then you came back to the ashram for the first time. So how was your experience, like whole experience of the space and of the Dhanalingam, Linga Bhairavi temple? How was that for you?
Okay, the experience of going into ashram was very amazing. One reason, I know, like, ashram has a altogether different vibration. That's a heaven on the earth. That is another thing. But before that, like, preparing for the course was a very big struggle in terms of, we both just moved to Canada. We didn't have enough money. Like, what about enough money? We had zero money. So we both were, like, very rigorously working. And you know how life, in when you are working, you can very much relate to it, how your schedule is so mechanical. Like, you wake up and this, there is a certain pattern in which you have to work. So life became so much like that. And because of coming for the training, I was working extra hours so that, it would be very like, easy. So the life was so mechanical. And when I went to ashram, it was like such a relief after, good 2 years, 1.5 years of being in Canada. It was so relieving, and so soothing to the soul and mind. And ashram is a amazing place. You have to experience it to know that. So it was so beautiful. It was like, wow, a very very needed, place to be.
Did your parents and your, in-laws were very okay with your decision? Because this is a very big decision of, just got married, and then and this much of spending money and coming here and doing that. So was
Yeah.
that a difficult decision in terms of that convincing them?
Yeah, like for my mother, for my own mother, yes. For my in-laws, no, because the thing is, my father-in-law, he's very inclined towards all these things. He was listening to Sadhguru, so he was very happy, with the decision, and moreover, like my husband took over, so I was not. They didn't ask me anything, and they might have asked from my husband, but I didn't have to deal with any of the thing. And my mother, yes, obviously she was like, who will cook for him, how is he going to stay, and which is a fair point, because we don't have a family here. So my husband was all alone in all these months, so my mother was very concerned, and she was concerned for my husband, and also she was socially concerned, like both my mothers, I feel. What people will say, things like that. But my decision and my intensity was so high that it didn't bother me at all. Not for a microsecond, it didn't bother me. And about the details, like the money part, I didn't tell anyone. Like I think still very less people know how much I have spent there. So about the money part, I didn't tell anyone, though. Like my father and my father-in-law asked me, if you need anything, because they had some idea that the course is very expensive. So don't worry, we can pay for it. But I had this decision, that this is a luxury to me. I'm doing it for my own, uh, myself. So I had this thought, I'll not take even a single penny from anyone. I didn't took anything from even my husband for that course. I saved everything, but my husband supported me a lot. It was impossible without him, and I think he was throughout there, and it was his decision. Basically, Akka, we didn't seek permission from anyone, to be honest. We just tell our
Told everyone.
parents. We told them that okay, we are doing this. We didn't ask, okay, can we do that? Okay, this or that. We basically told them we are going to do this, and that was my husband's idea. That don't seek permission, just tell, and it was his decision.
We also did the same thing, that we told everyone.
Yeah,
And
you have almost same story. I know.
yeah, like little different, but in the terms of telling people, like we did not, because you never, if you seek permission and
Yeah,
they will tell no, then it will be like you are going against them, which we don't want, right? It is
yeah.
like we are
And then
going to do that, and then you just have to just agree with it. That's all.
And when you tell people, they give all sort of thing, and sometime because for me it was such a new thing. Like the yoga was, I never did like yoga before in my life, so it creates so many more doubts. So for example, when I told, because in office I have to tell, that I was leaving, so I told everyone in my office 3 months back that okay, this is going to be my last day of work as I'm leaving. And everyone was like, are you mad, are you crazy, why are you spending so much money for a yoga program? You can learn it in park for free. You can spend the same amount to do some higher, to pursue your education, have another masters, or maybe do your PhD. Why are you spending so much money in yoga? So basically it made sense to only those people who have experienced it. For others, if they look at it intellectually, it really make no sense. So so when in my office people gave so much strong opinions, I was like, oh my god, thank god, or just that we didn't tell anyone, in the family or otherwise to our friends, because then they would give all kind of suggestions, and I didn't have that much courage at that point to give everybody a counter argument that okay, this is the reason, because I was very doubtful. I didn't know what I'm doing. It was more of a call. It was more of a intuitive thing. It was not a decision through intellect. So
What was your best part during the training? Like that is 5 months. What did you like the most?
Dhyanalinga and the temple, I would say. I feel so blessed, that we have this opportunity to go to the temples every single day. But I think it's very difficult otherwise about the training to say that, one part which was good. But for me, the best and the most painful part was discipline. I think as a person, I always lacked discipline in my life, and it was so beautiful. Initially it was so painful to wake up at 5, and you have to attend every single class, and you have to be on time. It was such a big pain for me because I was never conditioned in that way. I at every job I have a record. I used to go late, though I used to work so well, like, that I would compensate with the discipline part. But I always had disciplinary issues in my life. So discipline was the most painful part for me about the training, because Isha has exceptional discipline. Even the most disciplined people say that this discipline is another level. So for an indisciplined person, you can imagine how painful it would be. But then, when I was able to do it, it was such a strengthening thing that, okay, I could do this. I never knew in my life before that I can wake up 5 a.m. in the morning, or I can survive on 2 meals in a day. I can be silent for one day. So and I can do yoga, this much of yoga every day. So I think it was most beautiful part in the training. They tested our limits on every possible level, physically, emotionally, mentally. And it's painful, the process was painful, but the outcome was so amazing.
What do you want to say about our teachers there who were offering us?
Oh my God, that I have really no words for that, Akar. Really no words, because initially, I would, I really don't know. I get so blank, when it comes to that. But I really pay my highest regards to the teacher, because all the teachers, when they share their story, they are not like, okay, something messed up in their life and they chose to come in ashram. All the teachers, they were doing so fantastic in terms of career, like exceptionally successful people, I would say, most of them. And then they came and they left their, jobs or career or families, even most of them, and they are just wholeheartedly there. So it's a very, very, very different kind of experience to learn from such teachers who are not there for anything. They're just there to give. And it's very very difficult to explain, for me, how I felt about them. It's just
So, what about the food of the ashram? What do you want to say about that?
Oh, oh my God. So before I tell you about food, when I came back from training, every time I had a meal, every single time, trust me, every single time I would say to my husband, or just in ashram, this used to happen in terms of food. So he was like, more than anything, you miss ashram's food. Every time we have our food, I would like quote ashram's food. I'm really craving for it for now, while I'm talking to you. So food, first of all, the discipline of the food was an issue when I came to know in the orientation that, okay, we will have our food only twice a day. It was such a heart attack moment for me, because I used to have 4 5 meals and 3 4 snacks on top of it. So I was like, how I'm going to survive, 2 meals, it's just impossible. But I think the place has so much energy, and the food was so fulfilling, that 2 meals a day, and I was whole day I was working. I think it was really the most magical part for me. And and the food, oh my god, the taste of it, it was amazing. And you know, this is very interesting. So in when I was a child, I don't know why, but I had this undying love for South Indian food. Nobody in my family is that fond of South Indian food as I was. And so many traits of mine, I don't know why, but my family always used to tell me that she's a South Indian. She don't belong to us, you know. She's a South Indian. I had so much love for dosas and all those things. And when I because as a North Indian, you only know dosa, idli, sambar, like the major dishes. But when I went to ashram, and I had the food, it was like, wow, coming back to your home, you know, this is my thing. This is something which I was looking for. Not even the food, like even the culture, you know, in the south. So I think I must be a South Indian in my past life. I can say that with full surety. So I really loved food. Oh my God, the rasam. I just heard about rasam in so many novels. I read about it. It was so amazing. Just so amazing. Especially the special meals we had. Oh my God.
So we got a chance like to meet Sadhguru in person. Like he came to meet us 2 times.
Yeah.
But we attended some like some darshans what which was
Darshans.
happening, and we even went to some place for his rally of not rally of river. I think Kaveri calling some program. So how was your experience when you have seen Sadhguru with such a closely? So how was that for you?
Okay, so yeah, this is a very good question because I really want to tell something to everyone that when I went for the training, I just went there for learning yoga. I didn't have a association with Sadhguru as a guru, or you know, you see him as a guru. No, it was not the case. I purely went there, only went there for learning yoga. That was the only thing I was interested in. Sadhguru, no. I used to respect him a lot at that point as a person, as a humanitarian, as a social worker. But this concept of guru was so scary for me throughout my life. So basically, when I went there, the first program was Lap of Master, right? The Guru Purnima program. And I was sitting there struggling with my posture because I didn't sat on the ground from a while, and it was so difficult for me. I was just struggling, and then everyone was discussing, oh, Sadhguru will come, Sadhguru will come, we are so happy. And that was making no sense to me. It was annoying me because I thought like all the Indians have this problem. They associate so themselves so much with the person special that they forget what all teachings he has given to us. So my idea at that point was just be consistent with your practices, because your practice is something that would do wonders with you, not the person or the guru has nothing to do in it is just a very Indianized concept, or it's a very corrupt concept, to be little crude here. So I was thinking all these kind of things. These people are stupid, they should not behave like this. And Sadhguru came, and when I didn't see him coming. When he came, I was just in my own thoughts. People started shouting, crying, they were very happy. Then I came to know, okay, Sadhguru has come. So I looked at the dice, and he came. The first time I saw him, like the very first glance of him, I don't know what happened. I started crying, tears started rolling out of my eyes. And then those tears, I was just I started howling after 1 or 2 minutes. I was crying like I have not cried ever in my life. For 20-30 minutes I cried. I don't know why. I still don't know, and it was so strange because it didn't make any sense. Like, what happened to me? I was so fine sitting here, and I was making fun of everyone. And more than them, I'm behaving this way. So much was going on, and then the whole program happened. And I think with those tears built some kind of connection. something happened there. I don't know, except tears. I cannot explain anything, but something happened there. And then I grew this sensitivity. Okay, what does it mean to have a guru, or why people associate themselves so much with the guru that they forget the practices. Now it makes all the sense to me. And I think every time we get to meet Sadguru, something in me grew. Some change happened. I cannot explain it, but something really happened. I remember there was one time when Sadhguru was meeting us. It was Purnami, so we used to have silence on Purnami, right? I and So we all were on silence. Obviously, I went to the hall, and I saw that okay, the Sadhguru's photograph is not there. They have removed the photograph, and there was a chair. So I came to know, okay, Sadhguru is coming. And then I saw a notice on the like on the notice board that please assemble in the hall at this particular point. So it was very clear that Sadhguru is going to come. Okay, you won't believe, I didn't do my afternoon bath. Like we used to go to Kunda to take bath. I skipped that. I was just sitting there on the very first row, because I was like, I want to see him from a close space. And I was the one, just a month back, I was making fun of such a person. In my mind, my husband told me a devotee story, and I was like, people are stupid. I don't know how can they do that. What will happen if you'll see a person from a distance? Why do you want to see him from, and I was sitting there for 3 hours just so that I'm the first person in the row to see Sadhguru without any interruption. So that was the kind of connection or craziness which I developed. And yeah, I don't feel shy in admitting that.
So, what is the three transforming thing you believe that that is changed in you after the training?
Mm, okay, the first thing is food habits. So earlier, like before the training, for me, the food is all about taste. You feel you eat whatever is tasty. Though sometimes the tasty food can give you so much hard time. That's a separate issue. But for me, food was all about taste. I used to make so many different kind of snacks, and all of them were mostly unhealthy but tasty, obviously, like full of maida and all those things. But now when I have the same things, I can feel how they are working against my health or in my body. Like in 10 minutes, if I'll have it, I'll know. So I have built that. Yoga has helped me to build that awareness about the food. So for about same thing happened about the onion garlic. So after my marriage, my husband chose to leave onion garlic, and he was like, "Is it okay if we leave onion garlic?" Though I was not okay, but I said okay. What I can do about it. And we were newly married, and you have to you cannot say no. So your image is at stake. So I was not eating onion garlic. And then sometimes whenever I got a chance, I would just order the food with onion garlic whenever we'll go out. And then in ashram, but when I stayed in ashram, so much transition happened, Akka, that after that, whenever I still have onion garlic sometimes. Like we don't use it at our house, but sometime, but I can feel how it is reacting in my system. So yoga has helped me to build so much awareness within the body about the food, that if I eat anything wrong, my body will communicate. I think it was communicating before as well, but I didn't have the awareness or sensitivity to listen to it. But now I have a lot of sensitivity. I still eat like snacks or things made of maida sometimes, but every time I eat, it is a reminder, don't eat it again. It's like, you know so that is a very big change which I have felt after the training in terms of food. The other was, yeah, physically, obviously, after doing so much of yoga, you become so flexible. though I think there is still a long way to go for me in terms of flexibility, because in my whole life I never did anything which has to do something with physical activity. Like, I was taking part in so many things, but nothing of sports or yoga or those kind of things. So when I started my journey with yoga, it was so hard initially. My body was always not cooperating with me. It never cooperated with me, but it's very beautiful to see the transition, and that how much you can bend now. Though you should not, like, that is not a parameter to judge yoga or you in any way, but it's very beautiful to see your body is not a problem anymore. And the third and the biggest thing that I see is definitely in terms of the my mind is not able to trick me now as much as I used to it used to trick before. So suppose some situation will happen. I was always a very sensitive person. If somebody will say me one thing, I'll just think about it for 2 3 days, and I'll hurt myself, and I'll think all the things that happened in the past and that can happen in the future. But now I think I have that much awareness that I don't let my mind to trick me that much. Though we have our own days. Sometimes we feel we are happy and high, sometimes some days are low, but the low days has drastically reduced. Now I think, so for example, if I could be angry or upset about a situation for 10 days before, it's one day or half day now. So it's a very big change for me. And for the more than me, it's for my husband. He's very happy about it. So he thinks that every husband should send his wife to ashram for 6 months. Your life would be solved. It's at ease.
So now you're doing full time, you're teaching full time. So how is your experience? And this pandemic happened, like we came in December and from March the pandemic started. So
Yeah.
how is going about this? How you're doing it now?
So about the teaching, when I in fact took the program, I was very clear in the interview that I have no plans about teaching. I don't know how I'm going to pursue the teaching, though I always wanted to do the teaching, but I didn't know how, because India could be a very different place. Here it was very challenging for me. I didn't have any social circle, nobody knew me, and I didn't know. So from December to June, I just took one class, one or I guess two classes, for that too for my husband, and one for my husband and my father-in-law in India. And my plan was I'll continue my job and I'll just teach, like once in a month or 2 months for family and friends. That was my plan. But then Sadhguru had a different plan for me. When this pandemic happened, I got an opportunity to work from home, which was a blessing for me in the way that it was taking me 3 hours every day to commute back and forth to office. So now I was able to save these 3 hours. Then at the time in the pandemic, Sadhguru also introduced Upa Yoga online practices. So I started with Upa Yoga for friends and family in India. It was not like I was just trying to reach out to some people. No, it was initially I started with the friend, Rohit. He's my husband's friend, and he was very keen to do it. He really wanted to know how is it. And I was very skeptical about it, because I thought, like yoga can only happen in a live class. It's very difficult to conduct it online, and I'm also not a very good very tech savvy person. I can use technology only to the extent needed. I'm not a kind of person who is very tech savvy. So Rohit helped me to do the setup, like with everything. I started this first course, and I felt so great about it. It was such a fulfilling experience. And then the two participants, one was a cousin and another was Rohit. They both were so happy and positive about it as well, and they are the kind of people who will just say the truth. They're not here to tell you, okay, sugar coated words. I knew them. They'll say the truth. And I thought, okay, if they are liking it, everybody will like it, enjoy it. And then I started with another program for 5 6 people in my family. And then one of my cousin told me, okay, how about taking a program for all the kids in the family? And like this I started, and within 2 to 3 months, Akka, I think I ended up taking 20 to 30 online sessions, online programs. I took every program for 1 week, so it gave me a lot of confidence, like about the practice. I always had the confidence about Isha practices, that okay, people really adore it, to their so it gave me a lot of confidence. Then when the pandemic situation got little better in Canada, people started looking for live classes like Surya Kriya, what all the live Hatha Yoga practices. Then Dan, he's a fellow yoga teacher here in Toronto. We have a group, so he asked me, so many requests are coming to me for the teaching. I cannot teach at the moment because my mother is a senior citizen, and obviously I don't want to take a risk with her, so I'm not going to teach for 1 year. But if you want, I can forward those requests to you. Then I was like, wow. uh, and he helped me, he gave me a few, like, he helped me how to do the setup. Though school trained us about everything, but still when you do it practically, so he supported me at every single point. And with his help, I was able to took my live classes. And I was very fortunate, Akka, that way, that I didn't have to do any struggle for reaching out to people. It was all taken care of on its own. So Dan, Bhavani, Nirubika, Vanita, there are 3 4 teachers in the group. They forwarded their participants, and it was a very effortless journey for me, that way teaching, because the challenge is to find the initial participants. So yeah, and once I have tasted teaching, I think I cannot do anything else in my life. I had so many aspirations, like about my own career to communication and doing something like writing, but I have no such aspirations now. I just want to teach. That's how it is.
So if people have to reach you, like online classes, or so you have a very beautiful Instagram where you actually post so much. I think your communication knowledge, the skills of communication, we can see there. The post you put, it's very very nice. I really love that. So
Thank you,
people can
Akka.
you can just give your
Hearing it
all handles.
Hearing it from you is such a big thing, because for those who don't know, might be like, Pailaka was someone who was always excelling in the training, though you cannot like compare. But still, I was the one and who was always struggling, and she was the one who was not only doing well, but she was motivating people like me who were struggling. Okay, do this, you're good. And so hearing it from you is a very big thing. Thank you.
Very nice you are doing. So I think we would be doing live Instagram. We are planning.
Yes,
Let's
we
let's
are
see.
planning. You have to do
So
that with me. There is no choice about it.
so we will be providing the handles of Instagram, as well as you have a website where people can reach out in if they are in Canada, if they want to come
Yeah,
and
because I have a website. It's just for hathayoga.com. I'll also, share it with you so that you can share the link. And I have Facebook page, Insta handle, and phone numbers. So I'm generally very active, on all the platforms. So yeah, anyone can reach me at any of the places. So yeah, I can do that.
Thank you so much. I think it was wonderful talking to you and a lot to know about you, and you are doing a great job. I think what is important is what we were and where what we reached upon. It is like everybody's starting point is different, so we can't
Yeah.
compare from
Yeah.
one's another journey is very different. But one thing which I can say at the most is everybody got transformed and everybody got evolved and improved. Whatever
Yeah.
we were, we are the improved version of that. And
Yeah.
that is what is very important. The journey of self improvement is
Yeah.
what is very important. Thank you so much, Kritika, for joining and sharing your journey. Thank you so much. Namaskar.